Hi, I'm Tiffany Cheung, the Corporate Engagement Leader at Allied Offsets. I'll be answering 3 questions from Carbon Market Watch today about transparency in the credit transaction process. First of all, do we know who is purchasing and retiring carbon credits? Purchasing information is usually only known by the buyer themselves and the seller, whether that be a project developer, a broker, or a marketplace. There is much more disclosure when it comes to credits that have been retired, as you can often tell from the names and account holder or retirement detail notes. However, the 4 largest registries that you can see here, which together account for around 90% of the market share of issued credits, do not currently require that this information be provided, so any information that you do get about the buyer is voluntary. One good example about the scale of this issue is the fact that on the 4th of March 2021, we saw a record-setting 8.5 million credits retired, but there was no data about the companies responsible for 8.2 million of these. Thankfully, on this graph of anonymous versus non-anonymous retirements from the last decade, the proportions are shifting in the right direction, with anonymous retirements trending downwards over time. Do we know the price at which credits are being purchased by companies? Generally, no. Often the only way in which the public can learn about the price at which credits are being purchased is from press releases for high-profile forward offtake agreements or investments in nascent technologies. As the VCM's largest database, Allied Offsets has privileged relationships with intermediaries who directly share pricing information with us, but this is not information that is widely given out. What steps should companies and other stakeholders take to improve transparency in the purchase and use of carbon credits? This is a question that I'm glad to have the chance to answer, because there are some quite straightforward ways to make direct improvements to transparency here. First of all, make it apparent which entity is benefiting from the retirement of a carbon credit when the transaction is being processed through the registry. This could be a company ensuring that their own account holder name is publicly viewable, or asking any intermediary handling the transaction on their behalf to specify the name of the company in the retirement details. It also goes for brokers who are retiring for themselves instead of for clients. This transaction page shows how simple it is to just add a note into the retirement details section. Secondly, companies that are using carbon credits for voluntary purposes should say so on their websites and sustainability reports. They should specify the ID number or project name and the size of each transaction. This improves transparency not only in the VCM, but is a more accessible way of communicating climate action and remaining accountable to members of the public. And lastly, if companies retiring credits in order to offset their carbon footprint, then it makes sense to say in the retirement details of the transactions what period of emissions and ideally what scope or product is being covered by these credits. Some companies that do this well are the accounting giant PwC and the German manufacturer Heidelberg. Even if a company has purchased credits without offsetting in mind, stating any reason for retirement is still useful for building understanding of buyers' motivations for being in the voluntary carbon markets.